This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to
Welcome to In or Out, a rapid-fire game where we discuss a handful of NBA topics and determine where we stand. I'm Tony Pesta, joined by Jackson Flickinger, and the Cavs just lost a relatively hard-fought Game 3 to the Boston Celtics. It was, in some ways, an unfortunate mess of a game, and in other ways, about what you'd expect. We're going to break down some of what we saw in that Game 3, but let's start with something that just came out very recently. Donovan Mitchell is now questionable to play in Game 4 with a left calf strain. That's the same leg that has been bothering him with the knee issue for a while. Jackson, I want to get your thoughts on this, but really I'm thinking if he doesn't play, it's Cancun on 3. Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to look at this. They're 12 and 15 this season without Mitchell. One of those 12 wins came against the Celtics, but that, you know,
Dean
I
Wade?
don't see that. Yeah, the Dean
Was it
Wade
the Dean
game.
Wade game?
Dean Wade is still there. Not on the injury report, so he is going to go tomorrow. But I mean, let's be real. This team doesn't have a chance if they don't have Donovan Mitchell. I would be surprised if he doesn't play, but I think this is just kind of an indicator of how he's definitely in pain if he's going to show up on the injury report, especially when you look at somebody like Evan
Yeah.
Mobley, who we know he's in pain. It's been reported multiple times, and he left Game 3 for a lot of the third quarter because of an ankle issue, and he's not on the injury report. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of the severity of the injury. Also, I think it's important to one of the things that I've thought of this season is looking at Mitchell's ability to get to the rim and the free throw line as an indicator of how he's doing health wise. And in game 3, he only had 4 of his 22 attempts came at the rim, and he only had 3 free throws. So that's not really a good indicator of health. And he only went 1 for 4 there. So
Not great. Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't play, it's hard to see them having a chance. If he does play and he's limited, that also hurts quite a lot too, especially because in Game 3, while he wasn't getting to the rim, he was burying threes, and that really kept them afloat in the first half. I think he had 6 in the first half. That's not something that I'd like to ride on. I'd like him to be the normal Donovan Mitchell that we saw, even just the version of Donovan Mitchell we saw against Orlando, where, yeah, the knee's bothering him, but he's still bullying his way to the rim. If you don't get that, it's hard to feel too optimistic. But let's shift here and talk about something that we anticipated / hoped for, the return of Dean Wade. Now, this was Wade's first game since March 10th after taking a 2-month parental leave. No, he was
something
suffering
like
from a
that.
knee strain, but he did become a father during that stretch. Nonetheless, he returned to the floor last night. So, Jackson, are you in or out on what we saw from Wade's first game back?
I mean, you have to be in. The bar was so low for you to be out on it. Marcus Morris, George Niang, those are the type of guys that he needs to clear, and I think he did so easily. Even Marcus Morris, his game 3 minutes were bad.
Yeah,
Uh,
they were.
yeah, he who did he have he tried like a turnaround jumper against Tatum, and it was just like what are we
His
doing
Kobe
here?
moment.
Yeah, like that there's no content. Like you don't want that from Prime Marcus Morris, let alone this guy. So
Would
yeah,
you
that
rather have
was
a Marcus Morris post fade or a George Niang post hook?
give me
The
the give me the
fate of the
Morris,
universe.
give me
Fate of
the
the universe is
Morris
on the line. Morris
jumper.
fade away.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Niang uh make a post look, especially if it's against like somebody his size. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't give me that. But still, it's not what you want. So you know, Dean Wade was better than that, and he showed some things. There was a lot of talk post game, especially by some of the media people there, about how the small lineup really worked with Dean Wade at the center. I don't think that's going to work at all if Boston kind of knows it's coming, but it's just an example of the versatility that Wade provides because he's able to do multiple things. And the Cavs, frankly, don't have a lot of guys who can do multiple things. He can guard multiple positions. He's a good rebounder. He can space the floor some. He can, if he's forced to dribble the ball and drive inside, he's a basketball player. So, it's good to have him. I know that he's not a perfect player, and we could see, if they put him into the starting lineup, we could see an all-time Dean cardio game. But it's still, it's good to have another option there.
Yeah, it's very easy to see where Dean Wade fits on this team, and especially in this matchup. He did hit his first three-pointer of the night. It felt like we were back, and then kind of all downhill from there. I've said this before, even bad Dean Wade is not nearly as destructive as bad Morris or bad Niang. Even if he's not impacting the game in a positive way, you still feel more comfortable with him out there. But I did think he looked a little cooked on defense at times. He got burned a few times, committed a really bad foul on Tatum, just left his feet on the pump fake, missed some open shots that would have really helped them swing this game in some pivotal moments. And then the one that hurts is that he stopped shooting in the fourth quarter, and even earlier on in the game, he passed up a couple good looks. Now, I would be more than happy to say, hey, it's his first game back in 2 months. He's kind of trying to get his sea legs under him, but Cardio Dean is a thing. This is kind of who he is. Yeah. So aside from like that 2-week stretch every once in a while where he's just burning teams, he is the type of player who's going to pass up looks. So still very glad to have him out there. I feel like he might not have that much time to get comfortable because the Cavs are 2 losses away from the season being over, but I'd imagine he gets more comfortable in game 4 and 5 at the least.
Yeah, and I mean, even bad Dean is better than anything the Cavs have got at like power forward and backup power forward. Like,
yeah,
since Jarrett Allen went out, so like you'll take it, or at least you can't complain too much. But yeah, it's it could be Dean better, obviously.
He's already George Niang so far has hit 2 3-pointers in the postseason. Dean Wade hit one in his first 30 seconds last night. So had that tweet in the chamber ready to let go. Didn't get a chance. But Dean Wade is already, we don't have to even go over this. He's very clearly ideal Dean Wade is very, very helpful. But I hit on that comfort level, and I think that's a good way to shift and talk about Evan Mobley because he has been asked to fill a different role from what we normally expect from him. This current matchup and the way the Cavs are playing kind of calls for Mobley to assert himself as a scorer. And while he did score 21 points in game 2, he had 17 points in game 3. The Cavs still want/need a little more from him. And I think we're seeing the reality that this is the first time they have ever asked him to be more offensively. So Jackson, are you in or out on the way Mobley has been playing and even just his development, if you want to take it there?
I am in on Evan Mobley, the way he's playing this series. I am out on everything the Cavs have done developmentally with Evan Mobley the last 3 years. I think, I've said this before, we've said this before, I feel like Evan Mobley is somebody who you need to force to evolve, and I think we're seeing that. And I'm really interested to see how he plays in game 4. Game 2 was his best game, and I think the Celtics did a lot of things to take away what he did really well. They started crashing the glass more after missed shots, which took away his ability to kind of just grab the rebound and go, because if he's getting contested rebounds, he's usually outletting it, but instead of just, a free rebound, nobody's around him, he's able to just grab it and go. So that took away a part of his game. They also did a really good job of, anytime he got it in the post, even if it wasn't a mismatch, they would send help. And Evan Mobley is somebody who's really methodical in the post, and he just couldn't really adjust. He never tried to make the pass out, and it just
got to be one of the first times he's been doubled or even had help sent to him in the post.
Right. So, and I think some of the issues that we saw in that Knicks series where it was these are different issues, but kind of him being a little slower to kind of read and react to what's happening and kind of freeze up a little bit. I think we saw that some, but he still scored 17 points. I don't think he wasn't bad. He wasn't as good as the Cavs needed him to be. And I think this is where you want to see this development. This is development that we would have liked to have seen in year 1, in year 2, but are seeing it now just because Jarrett Allen's out, because he's not a power forward, he's a center, and the sooner we all realize that, the better off this team will be. And I think we're seeing that, how his skills are a little more useful as a center, like him being able to pop out and take 1 or 2 threes a game. That's huge as a center. Whereas if you're a power forward, that's like you have to be taking 4 or 5 threes a game. Being able to push it in transition is really valuable when you have 4 other shooters out there. It's not as valuable if you have another big and you are also a big. So I'm in on everything that we've seen from Evan Mobley. I think even if Mitchell can't play, this series is still interesting to me because we can see how Mobley reacts
Yeah,
to all
definitely.
the things that's happening. But it's just like, it feels like the Cavs have, to a certain extent, wasted some of what Mobley can do and some of his development on
Hmm.
3 seasons of trying to get him to play power forward with Jarrett Allen. This isn't Kevin Garnett. This isn't 2001. You can't just, expect somebody to not be able to be a consistent outside shooter and ask him to play
Hmm.
4.
Yeah, I definitely think once this season wraps up, whether it's now or in the finals and we're doing a parade, we should do a
Which
whole
would be
episode.
sick.
I'm joking for the record, but I do want to do a whole episode just talking about the way the Cavs have developed this young core. I think there's a lot of interesting discussion there, but as of right now, this series has really exposed how little the Cavs have asked of Mobley offensively throughout his career. He has been good against Boston, but right now they need him to be great. And since they have never required that much out of him, I think it's showing a little bit. You mentioned just the processing speed of having help come and having a team adjust to take away your threat offensively. He hasn't really dealt with that. He only attempted 11 field goals yesterday, and it felt like he could have had more if he was just a little faster to get to his spots, to go up quicker, and he could have probably gotten a couple more assists if he made plays out of that. And I also think he's being used the wrong way throughout his whole career, as you were mentioning,
Yes.
but I wouldn't dump it to him in the post that often. I don't think he's a great post player. I think he should be facing up and taking guys to the rim, which it's easier said than done. But those plays where they clear out and try and get him a post up, it just doesn't feel like that's his game. I think he should spend more time on the elbow, more time facing up, because I think using that speed and athleticism, his handle is weak, but that freakish balance and mobility, those are his strengths, and I don't think they allow him to play to his strengths as often as you would like.
And he's a good passer, and I think we saw that in game 2 when they
Yeah.
did feature him at the post. Like, they
Mm.
can do interesting things, and he's not a good screener, like definitely not as good of a screener as somebody like Jarrett Allen, which
Mm.
is tough, but that's an area where it's like, if he was a center, if he just came into the league and just said, "Hey guys, we're gonna make you play center," I think that's a skill he would have developed a lot quicker. But if you're able to use him in dribble handoffs and the high post, I think it kind of neutralizes some of that deficiency, or at least gives him another way to handle the ball and stuff.
Mm.
So I there's stuff that they can do, and I'm really interested to see how they continue to use Mobley, because I think everyone on the Cavs understands how important he is, even if Mitchell is, being the Donovan Mitchell he was at the beginning of the series. So, I this is the thing to watch for this series, even if you don't think the Cavs have a chance.
Mm. Yeah, these reps are going to be very valuable, I think, regardless of the outcome. Now, this next topic is something that I briefly mentioned on the last pod, but I want to bring it back up because the Cavs have a thin margin for error against this Celtics team, and we'll get to that more in our last topic. But because the bar is so high, it means you really need to minimize your mistakes and give yourself a chance to clear it. I don't think they have valued possessions the right way, especially last night. I think it's been a running theme throughout this era of Cavs basketball, honestly. And I want to be clear, I'm not just talking about turnovers. I'm talking about possessions that don't serve a purpose, possessions that are bad shots or just low IQ plays. I think the Cavs did a lot of that last night. So I guess I'll start off this one.
Mhm.
Listen, Levert. Karis LeVert, guys. I get that he's an ISO scorer, so that's where a lot of his game comes down to, but there's a time and a place. Some of his ISOs in this series have been so bad. You have Jrue Holiday on you. You have Derek White on you. The team doesn't need you to derail an entire possession and go one-on-one in that scenario. There was a play in second half, can't remember if it was the third or fourth. He takes a step back three on Al Horford. It's like 19 seconds on the shot clock. The Cavs run a run, and he takes that three and he misses. That's a bad basketball play.
Yeah.
It's a low IQ play. The team didn't need that shot in that moment. You could have got a better look. And I don't think it's just LeVert. I think there were plays where Strus and others, even Donovan Mitchell, kind of sometimes early in the shot clock just blindly charge the rim. Maybe they're going for it, trying to draw a foul or whatever, but just not good looks. Garland, especially, is guilty of this, being lazy with the ball, lackadaisical, not attacking with an intent to score. He's doing this isn't necessarily a bad play, but when you dribble all the way under the baseline, under the basket, like Garland did that twice in one possession, I think. And like, listen, it's good to explore your options and kind of do that Steve Nash dribble, but if you're not looking to score, what are we doing? There's so many plays and so many moments where this Cavs team just doesn't look like they're attacking with a purpose. And when you look at the best teams in the NBA, whether it's the Celtics, the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, they don't have many possessions that look like that. They have a very clear plan almost throughout the entire game consistently, and the Cavs are not at that level. Like I saw people saying, I'll end my rambling here. So a lot of people saying that their process was good last night. I really didn't think so. I didn't think their process was very good last night. I don't think it came down to, hey, they just missed shots. I think there were too many possessions. They did. Oh, yeah, they definitely did. And some of those shots, like, to be fair, they did generate some good looks that they just flat out missed. But I think there were way too many possessions that were aimless that costed them the game, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. Also, you still have Mobley as the scorer.
Yeah,
There we go. So I think the Celtics did a really good job of adjusting, in a sense that I thought they helped out a lot more on drives and were comfortable just like recovering two shooters, which I think created a lot of open shots. And I think the Cavs were like 5 for 24 on threes from people who weren't Donovan Mitchell, which is
ugly,
which is not good. But also not surprising. They came into yesterday's game as shooting 31% from three in the playoffs. So, like, this isn't a team
still waiting for that 3-point variance to swing the right way.
They keep saying that, but one game where they shot like 26 threes or something like that. So it doesn't even count. But yeah, I think this kind of gets to the point of the Cavs don't really know what they're doing on offense, in the sense that they don't know what they want to accomplish. And I think one of the things that we've seen is that this team it's felt like there's been 4 seasons within this one season in terms of what their offensive philosophy was. Like in the beginning of the season, they're like, we're going to play with more pace. And they kind of did, but then they turned it over a ton. And then, when Mobley and Garland went out, they just took a bunch of threes. And then they kind of transitioned to something in between both of them in the latter part of the season. So it's just really, like, I don't know.
They don't have an identity.
Right. And it's been like,
and we're 2 years into this specific core with Mitchell, 3 years with Garland, Mobley, and Allen. It feels a little disappointing that we don't have a clear identity for this offense.
Yeah, and it's not surprising, unfortunately, so if you're looking at, I think JB has done a really good job.
To be fair,
at some points of the playoffs, but
they're trying to get to that level of Minnesota, Denver, Boston. Minnesota's still very early. I don't want to keep putting them in there. They've been great so far, but like when you're trying to get to that championship level, it's tough. So I'm not like making an excuse at all, but like we're disappointed because it hasn't happened yet. That's clearly what they're trying to do. There's still a gap that they have not cleared.
Well, I think it's the same thing as the Evan Mobley conversation, because really what the Cavs have is the Cavs have 3 like offensive players who can dribble and create for themselves and set up others. Like Karis LeVert is who Karis LeVert is. Donovan Mitchell came over as a finished product, essentially. And Darius Garland doesn't, like, even good Darius Garland, like Darius Garland of last year and the year before, never really knew, I feel like, the exact type of player he wanted to be, or like how to best use his skill set. And I think that's where the player development issue has really shown through, forcing him to play with two bigs his entire career, even before they got Mobley. It was like, let's play with Drummond and Nance. So,
Yeah,
you
they've been
know,
trying that for a while.
right. And it just, I feel like it's really limited him as a player. Like, it's made him a really good player in that he can really manipulate teams into pick and roll, but it feels
Mhm.
like that's the only thing he can do when he's really taking it inside. And that's a disservice to him because we know how skilled he is. And even when he's lacking confidence like this, it's just really tough when there's only so many things that he's comfortable doing within a game. And I think that kind of goes back to the Cavs player development.
Yeah, I'm genuinely excited to do a whole episode on that because I think we can talk a lot about uh, kind of the pros and cons, mostly cons, and how they've developed these players. But let's
Well,
get
it's
it.
just
Oh, go ahead.
last thing.
Go ahead.
They've been valuing short-term wins over
Yeah,
long-term
yeah. Mm,
growth. Like this is the Isaac Okoro. Like, hey, if you're going to be on the court, shoot in the two most valuable areas. Like shoot corner threes and get to the rim. But what
mhm.
does that make you? That doesn't make you a complete basketball player. It's the same thing with Evan Mobley. It's the same thing with Darius Garland. Hey, run these pick and rolls. You can get Jarrett Allen involved. You can get Andre Drummond involved. You can get Tristan Thompson, Larry Nance Jr. involved. But you're not rounding out your game. And that's kind of the issue that we've seen from the guys that have been top 5 picks.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I definitely think they could have afforded some, like, especially with Mobley. I don't want to dive back into it, but like, you could have had some games where you said, Mobley, we need you to take 20 shots tonight because we just want to see what you can give us. There were plenty of times throughout the season where they could have tried that, and it just felt like this franchise has played it too safe over the last 3 years. But last topic
Yeah.
here, it's something that we briefly talked about throughout the series. We've talked about this, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But the Celtics now in this series alone have gotten timely performances out of Derek White, big performance from Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, even Jrue Holiday and Peyton Pritchard have stepped up in big ways.
All of the role players are stepping up. It's crazy.
Basically, and if you flip that and ask me how many
The
Cavs
joke was
players have
the joke
given
was
big
Jason
performances,
Tatum and Jaylen Brown
oh,
are role
oh,
players. I thought you missed
it
that.
went
That's
over my
fine.
head.
That's fine.
They have a lot of role players who are stepping up. So it's
Including
funny because it's
including
true.
Tatum and Brown.
But if you flip that and you ask me how many Cavs have given big performances in the playoffs, the list isn't very long. It's basically Mitchell, Allen, and Mobley, and you've had like a few guys step up occasionally. But the point is, Boston's depth is already proven to be on another level. So the question that I want to ask is that depth simply too much for the Cavs to overcome?
No, because we've seen them overcome it. So,
Okay,
game 2, we saw that Mitchell and Mobley can be enough if you have them like
but
operating as
for
needed.
4 out of 7,
I think they could. I mean, I
okay,
don't
I don't necessarily disagree. I'm
I don't
just
think
clarifying.
like it makes it tough to really have this Mitchell conversation now because we don't know how much his calf has been bothering him or how
Mhm,
hampered he
mhm,
is. But I think we saw, and he said this after game 3. He said, game 2 we saw the formula, and I think that formula is getting downhill, like attacking Boston and making them rotate. And yesterday they were they got a bunch of shots at the rim at the very end of the game, but during the first half they were just settling for so many threes, and I think it just allowed Boston's defense to get comfortable in a way that they were never comfortable in game 2. So I think the Cavs have the players to really make this a series, but if if you don't get an A+ game from Mitchell and Mobley, and I know that Mitchell played great in the sense that his box score was great, but I don't think this was a game that the Cavs needed him to play. Whereas I think game 2, I think that was an A+ performance. I think this was a B- performance just because of where he was getting his shots and how he was doing it. So, like, Boston's depth is a problem, obviously, but the Cavs can overcome it. It's just whether they can do that again this series, given how limited, you know, really Mobley and Mitchell are with their various injuries.
mhm. Yeah, I want to hit on that Mitchell point because Jake Eisenberg of First to the Floor Celtics podcast, he tweeted that during Mitchell's heater in the first half, he said, hey, if Mitchell wants to shoot 12 of 16 from on step back threes, let him. Let him shoot out there all you want, because where he's at his best is when he's getting downhill, or where the Cavs are at their best is when he's getting downhill and creating shots for others. He only had 3 assists in that game. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that he was being selfish or anything. It's just he got away from what worked in game 2. And obviously his shooting was incredible and he kept them in it at stages. But I think the Celtics would rather him play that game as opposed to what we had before. Also, I want to apologize if you can hear Apollo squeaking his toy. This was a bad time for me to. It was a bad time for me to give him a new toy. He just started squeaking it again. So bear with us.
He's having fun.
He's vibing over there. And we're almost done with this episode, so hopefully he won't be too annoying. But to wrap up my point, the depth pieces for Cleveland haven't added enough throughout the postseason, really. I mean, Strus, he's done the frustrating part about Strus is that he has done everything well besides the thing he was brought in to provide. So in some ways it balances out, but really it doesn't, because you just need him to knock down shots. You need him to do it. No one else has been consistent. You've gotten some games where Okoro is super, super helpful, and you've gotten other games where he's not really doing much. Like last night was a good example of that. Lillard is the token image of someone who's inconsistent. George Niang, we've said enough on him. Darius Garland doesn't have it. He just doesn't have it this season.
I mean,
I think it's clear.
It's bad that we're including him in the depth pieces conversation.
Exactly.
That kind of shows how bad things have fallen.
Yeah.
And if the Cavs had a 5 for 8 game from 3 from Max Strus yesterday, that changes absolutely everything. It's a very different game, but we haven't gotten the 5 for 8 game from Max Strus. We know he's capable of doing it. At least we think he's capable of doing it. So
he did. In Game 7, he hit some big shots against Orlando. I will say he hasn't had that great shooting game, but he has had some moments where he hits 2 or 3 back to back, and you're like, okay, this is what we needed from you.
What the Cavs need to do is they need to put a fear in Boston that they could actually lose this game. And that's what they did in game 2. And I think you saw them tighten up. This is what we've seen Boston do numerous times over the years.
I think they were getting there in game 3 too, until Peyton Pritchard hit that logo 3. It was Boston kind of,
that was insane.
A big sigh of relief after that. Okay, we have some more distance. Someone hit a shot. Before that, it was getting a little tight.
On that play, they got on the backside, they got Sam Merrill switched on to Jason Tatum, and I was like, oh, they're just going to give it to Tatum and clear out. And then Peyton Pritchard took a step back. I was like, oh, this is great. No, it was not great.
He has killed us in this series, I will say. He's been very good for them.
But you got to put that doubt in Boston, and I think that the Cavs did that in game 2, and they completely folded. And I think if you give Boston a chance to fold, they can. It's just that when you make, the Peyton Pritchard shot was great, but they were up 7 when he made that shot.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the Cavs stormed back and they're down 2 or they're up 4 or something like that. It was
getting there, and then he that shot took it out of reach again.
That's a lot easier shot to hit than a shot that the crowd's going nuts. You're down 4 now. Yeah. Now you have to make that shot.
He doesn't even take that probably if it's a 2-point game.
And that's the whole thing that the Cavs needed to do. They got off to a pretty bad start on defense in game 1.
You could argue they lost the game. I thought you were talking about game
quarter 1. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
In the first quarter. You could
argue they lost it right there.
Yeah. So, they scored 28 points in the first quarter. They let Boston score 30. You just can't do that. So I think there are avenues to do this, and I think this is why Boston looks overwhelming, because they are a really good front-running team in the sense that if shots start falling, everyone can start making them. But if you put fear in them, if you are physical inside, if you're executing your game plan and making it difficult for them, things become a lot more effort. Things become it looks effortless when everything's going well for them. But when you put them in a tight position, the offense doesn't get that way, and the ball sticks a ton. And then you get a lot of the Tatum and Brown fadeaways, and that's when you have a chance to actually win a game. So, the first quarter to the second quarter, super important in game 3. 4.
Yeah. And 4. I think they had they started on a 14-0 run in the third quarter, I think, too. It's like those are the moments where we talk about this all season. You can't go 5 minutes without scoring the ball,
And
guys. You're just not going to win.
And they were already down 9. So
Yeah,
it's easy to go on a 14-0 run when you're up 9. It's harder to go on a 14-0 run when you come into the third quarter down 9. So that's the whole thing. It's like you have to, because the Cavs, what were they leading at halftime in game 2?
Was it tied?
It was tied, but and then they came out on the run. So it's just easier to do that when you create that doubt in their mind. And the Cavs didn't do that. That's what the Heat did in game 2. The Heat never did that in game 3, 4, or 5. There was never a moment where you were watching that game, after the first 4 minutes, where you were like, oh, the Heat have a chance here. So the Cavs just need to hang in these games longer, and they can't afford a poor second quarter like they had.
I think it's important to note, because we've spent a lot, but the whole discussion around this series for most people has been Boston just outmatches the Cavs. And while I do think they are clearly the better team, I think it's important to keep in mind that Boston still has a lot to prove. They have not gotten over the hill yet. And as you have mentioned a couple of times, they have proven in the past that they fold in some moments. They have not proven that they haven't shown that they're going to overcome that yet. Maybe they will. Maybe they get all the way and they win the championship this year. But as of right now, they are still the team that folds under pressure. We'll get there. We don't need all of Boston in the comment sections hating us. But I think there's something there. They're vulnerable. This isn't like the powerhouse teams that we saw the last decade. This isn't a team that has won multiple championships. They are 6-7 years into this process, but they're not necessarily veterans, aside from a few guys over there, obviously. And so
they don't play like veterans. We can say that.
They don't have that poise that weathered. We've been here before and we've overcome it. The Cavs, if they can throw a good punch, they have a chance. It's just you need Mitchell to play the way he's been playing. You need Mobley to step up, and you need one or two role guys to step up and win their matchup, because right now Boston is just winning too many of the secondary matchups. They're Donovan Mitchell's been the best player in the series, and the Cavs are down 2-1. If other guys stepped up, the Cavs could be up 3-0.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. That's going to do it for this episode of In or Out. I want to thank everyone for watching, and if you enjoyed, please consider hitting subscribe and telling us in the comments if you agree or disagree with anything we said, and feel free to drop suggestions for future episodes. But with all that being said, go Cavs.
I agree, go Cavs. Brian, did you watch The Phantom Menace when it was back in theaters this week?